Hello, everyone. This is Nanette Kennedy with Humanities Team and the Evolution Revolution. And we are reading Friendship with God by Neale Donald Walsch. We are on chapter 5, real near the end. And I'll let Linda kind of get you centered to where that might be, since there's different books going around or different versions. And anyway, we're going to finish reading chapter 5, and we'll see if we still want to discuss some things or if we want to move on to chapter 6. And before I forget it, next Sunday is Easter Sunday, so we will not be meeting. So, hi, Christine. All right, take it away, Linda.
Okay, this is Friendship with God, an Uncommon Dialogue. We are on page 93, and I'm just going to transition us from the prior page. There's a sentence that God is saying. He says, they get to know that they are experientially. At this moment, the statement, we are all one, will no longer be a concept. It will be an experience. And Neale says, well, that could be a living hell. I thought you said in Conversations with God that there is no such thing as hell. There is no place of everlasting torment and damnation, such as you've created in your theologies. But you will, all of you, experience the impact, the outcome, and the results of your choices and decisions. Yet this is about growth, not justice. It is the process of evolution, never God's punishment. And during your life review, as some have called it, you will not be judged by anyone, but simply be allowed to experience what the whole of you experienced, rather than what the localized version of you who resides with your present body experienced at each moment of life. Ouch. That sounds like it could be painful. It is not. You will not experience pain, only awareness. You will be deeply in tune with, deeply aware of the totality of every moment and what is held. Yet this will not be painful, but rather enlightening. Not an ouch, but a aha? Exactly. But if there's no ouch, where is the payback for the hurt we've inflicted and the harm we've done? God is not interested in getting you back. God is interested in moving you forward. This is the path of evolution you are on, not the road to hell. The goal is awareness. God is not interested in getting us back. God just wants to back us getting it. Say, not bad at all. Well, I think it's important that we stay lighthearted here. I've spent years mired in guilt, and some people seem to think that you should hang on to guilt forever. But guilt and regret are not the same thing. Because I've stopped feeling guilty about something does not mean I no longer regret it. Regret can be instructive, while guilt is only belittling, debilitating. You're exactly right. That is well said. When we're free of guilt, we can move forward, as you put it, with our lives. We can make something worthwhile out of them. Then we can make friends with ourselves again, and then we can make friends with you. Yes, indeed, you can. You'll make friends with yourself again. You'll fall in love with yourself. And when you know and at last acknowledge who you really are, and when you know and last acknowledge who you really are, and when you know yourself, you'll know me. And that one step in having a real working friendship with God is complete. Yes. I wish it were as simple as you make it sound. It is. Trust me.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments, or we ready to move on to chapter 6?
Well, I think the whole process and purpose of our lives is far more simple than we're been conditioned to believe.
I would agree with that.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll just throw out there that this was one of the richest chapters I think that we've read in any of the books we've read so far, because we actually read it twice. We spent a lot of time discussing it, and it was great. It was a great fat chapter. Okay, Linda, how many pages is chapter 6? If you can
I'm
figure
going to
that
look
out.
in the hard copy here. Let's see.
Okay.
Oh boy. It looks to be considerable. It goes from page 96 to 122. And some of it is dense. I mean, we can probably do it in an hour.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and try it, and try to do that, unless somebody else has another comment. And we will try to end just a couple minutes early so that Shabana can do the closing meditation.
Yeah, unless there's something in it that, someone wants to stop and stop me.
Yeah, I'd just like to do the meditation now so that you can go right to the end.
Oh, okay. If
Okay.
that works for everybody.
If that's okay. And I agree with what Nanette just said, is that my understanding of this chapter is that, or the previous reading, two Sundays ago, is that essentially our personalities need to align with our souls. That once we know that we are God, then there's no mystery. It's just a matter of recognizing our nature as love and leaning into it. Does that make sense to everyone, or does someone dispute it? Okay, so that's the meditation. We are love, and all we need to do is lean into our true nature. And we thank you now that as a group, we are meditating on the fact that we are here to simply transmit that love. And as this circle, we are doing it to heal the world, because only love can do that. Amen.
Okay. Linda, if you want to go ahead and start, and thank you, Shabana. It's very similar to What Would Love Do?
Right.
So
Thank you very much, Shivana.
Yeah, thank you, Shabana.
Thank you, Shavana.
Okay, chapter 6. This is Neil. That's step 2, isn't it? That's step 2, and it's huge. It is huge because I don't know if I can trust you. Thank you for your honesty. I'm really sorry. Don't be sorry. Never be sorry for honesty. I'm not sorry for what I've said. I'm sorry if it hurt you. You can't hurt me. That's the point. I can't hurt you? No. Even if I do something horrendous? Even if you do something horrendous. You won't become upset and punish me? I will not. That means I can go out and do anything I want. You've always been able to do that. Yes, but I haven't wanted to. Fear of punishment is in the hereafter is what stopped me. You need fear of God to stop you from being bad? Yes, sometimes. Sometimes when the temptation's very great, I do need fear of what will happen to me after I die, fear for my immortal soul as a motivator to stop me. Really? You mean you've wanted to do such horrible things that you think you'd lose your immortal soul if you did them? Yes, I can think of at least one example of that in my life, yes. What was it? Right here? You want me to tell you right here in front of God and everybody? Cute. Yes, go ahead. Confession's good for the soul. Well, if you must know, suicide. You've wanted to commit suicide? I once thought about it very seriously, and don't act so surprised. You know all about it. You're the one who stopped me. With love, not fear. There was a wee bit of fear in there, too. There was? I was afraid of what would happen to me if I took my own life. So we began our dialogue. Yes. And now, 3 conversations with God books later, are you still afraid of me? No. Good. Except when I am. And when is that? When I don't trust you. When I don't trust that this thing is even you talking to me, much less trust the outlandish promises you make. You still don't trust that God is talking to you? Boy, that'll be interesting to your readers. What, that I'm human? I think they know I'm human. Yes, but I think that they imagine you to be clear about some things, at least convinced that you are having a conversation with God. I'm convinced. That's better. Except when I'm not. And when is that? When I don't feel that I can trust what you're telling me. And when is that? When it's too good to be true. I see. I go into fear. What if it's not true? What if I'm making it all up? What if I'm creating a God who will say anything I want him to say? What if you're saying just what I want to hear so that I can justify continuing my behavior? I mean, based on what you're telling me, I can do anything I want with impunity. No hurry, no fuss, no price to pay in the hereafter. Hell's bells, who wouldn't want that kind of a God? You, apparently. But I do. Except when I don't. And when is that? When I'm afraid, when I think I can't trust you. What are you afraid will happen to you? You mean if I believe the things you say and that it turns out you're not really God? Yes. I'm afraid God will throw me in hell. Why? For having, at worst, a fanciful conversation? for denying the one and only true God, and for leading others to do so, for telling others that there are no consequences for their actions, and thereby causing some people to do things they might not otherwise do because now they're not afraid of you. You really think you're that powerful? No, I think other people are that easily influenced. Then why haven't they been influenced enough by those who say I'm to be feared to stop their self-destructive behaviors? Huh? Religion has been around for centuries, telling people, I'll send them to hell if they don't believe in me this way or that way, and if they don't stop certain behaviors. I know that. Well, do you see those behaviors being stopped? No, not really. The human race is killing itself just as it always has. Faster, actually, than it ever has, because now you have weapons of mass destruction. And we're being no less cruel to each other now than we ever were. That's my observation as well. So what makes you think that if after centuries, millennia really, of religion not having easily influenced people, that somehow you're going to easily influence them and also then be personally accountable for their actions? I don't know. I guess I just need to think that once in a while in order to temper my actions. Why? What are you afraid you would do if you didn't temper your actions? I'd shout from the highest rooftop that I have at last found God, a God I could love. I'd invite everyone else to meet my God and to know him as I do. And I'd share everything I know about you with everything whose life I touch. I'd free people of their fear of you and therefore their fear of each other. I'd free them of their fear of death. And for this, you think God is going to punish you? Well, if I have it wrong about you, you will, or he will, or it will, whatever. I will not. Oh, Neil. If your biggest crime is that you've painted a picture of God too loving, I think you'll be forgiven for that, if you have to continue to believe in a God of reward and punishment. And if other people do bad things like kill or rape or lie because of me, then every philosopher from the beginning of time who has ever spoken or written against the then current belief system must likewise be guilty of all the deeds of man. Well, perhaps they are. Is that the kind of God you want to believe in? Is that the God you choose? This isn't a question of choice. We're not in a God supermarket. We don't get to make a choice about this. God is God, and we'd better have our understanding about that right, or we're going to straight to hell. Do you believe that? No, except when I do. And when is that? When I don't trust you. When I don't trust in the goodness of God and in the unconditional love of God. When I see us all here on earth as children of a lesser God. Is that often? Do you feel that way often? No, I have to say no, not very often. I used to. Man, did I ever used to. But not since our conversations. I've changed my mind about a lot of things. Well, not changed my mind, really, but what actually happened is that I allowed myself to believe what I always knew in my heart and wanted to believe about God. And has that been so bad for you? Bad? No, it's been good. My whole life has changed. I've been able to believe in your goodness again, and so I've been able to believe in my goodness again. Because I've been able to believe that, you forgive me for all I've done. I've been able to forgive myself. And because I've stopped believing that someday, somehow, someplace, I'm going to be punished by God, I've stopped punishing myself. Now, there are those that say that failing to believe in a punishing God is bad. Yet I see that nothing but good coming from this, Because if I'm ever going to do anything worthwhile, even if I'm in prison, just talking another prisoner out of hurting someone or continuing to hurt himself, I'm going to have to forgive and stop punishing myself. Excellent. You understand. I do understand. I really do. I haven't abandoned everything I've been told in our conversation. I just need a tool now, a tool I can create a real friendship with you at last. I'm giving you those tools right here. Yes, you are. Even before I asked, you've answered. As always. As always. So tell me, how can I learn to trust? By not having to. I can learn to trust by not having to trust? That's right. Help me here. If you don't want or need anything, if I don't want or need anything from you, do I have to trust you for anything? I suppose not. You're correct. So the highest level of trust is not having to trust? You're correct again. But how can I get to a place of not wanting or needing anything from you? By realizing that it's already yours, that whatever you need is already yours. Even before you ask, I will have answered. Therefore, asking is not necessary. Because I don't have to ask for what I already have. Exactly. But if I already have it, why would I even think I need it? Because you don't know you already have it. It's a matter of perception. Do you mean that if I perceive that I need something, I do? You will think that you do. But if I think that God will meet all my needs, then I won't. If you have faith that all your needs will always be met, then technically you have no needs at all. And this is the truth, of course, and it will become your experience, and so your faith will be justified. Yet all you will have done is change your perception. What I expect is what I get. Something like that. Yet the true master lives outside the space of expectation. He expects nothing and desires nothing more than what shows up. Why? Because he already knows he has everything. And so he happily accepts whatever part of everything it is that shows up in any particular moment. He knows that it is all perfect, that life is perfection playing itself out. Under these circumstances, trust is not required. Or to put it another way, trust becomes knowing? Yes. There are 3 levels of awareness around everything: hope, belief, and knowing. When you have hope about something, you are wishing that it is true or that it will happen. You are not certain in any sense of the word. When you have a belief about something, you are thinking that it is true or that it will happen. You are not certain, but you think you are certain. And you continue to think so unless something to the contrary appears in your reality. When you have a knowing about something, you are clear that it is true or that it will happen. You are certain in every sense of the word, and you continue to be certain, even if something to the contrary appears in your reality. You judge not by appearances, because you know what is so. So I can learn to trust you by knowing that I don't have to trust you. That is correct. You have come to a knowingness that the perfect thing is going to occur. Not that a particular thing is going to occur, but that the perfect thing is going to occur. Not what you prefer is going to occur, but that which is perfect is going to occur. And as you move towards mastery, these two become one. Something occurs, and you prefer no occurrence other than what is occurring. It is your very preferring of whatever is occurring that renders that occurrence perfect. This is called letting go and letting God. A master always prefers what occurs. You too will have reached a mastery when you are always preferring what is occurring. But that is the same as having no preferences at all. And I thought you've always said your life proceeds out of your intentions for it. If you have no preferences, how can this be true? Have intentions, but don't have expectations, and certainly don't have requirements. Do not become addicted to a particular result. Do not even prefer. Elevate your addictions to preferences and your preferences to acceptance. This is the way to peace. That is the way to mastery. A wonderful teacher and writer, Ken Keyes Jr., talked about this idea in an exceptional book called A Handbook to Higher Consciousness. Indeed, his formulations in that book were very important and for many people groundbreaking. He spoke of changing addictions to preferences. He had learned how to do that in his own life because for the most of it, he was in a wheelchair, immobile from the chest down. Had he been addicted to greater mobility, he never would have found a way to be happy. But he came to realize that it was not outer circumstances that were the source of happiness, but rather our inner decisions about how we choose to experience them. This formed the core of his writing, though most of his books didn't mention his physical challenges. So when he was asked to give lectures, people were often shocked to see him virtually immobile in his wheelchair. He wrote of such joy and of life that they imagined him to have everything he ever wanted. He did have everything he ever wanted. But those last 3 words contain an enormous secret. The secret of life is not to have everything you want, but to want everything you have. To borrow from another wonderful writer, John Gray. John is a wonderful writer, that is true, but who do you think is borrowing from whom? I gave him those ideas, just as I inspired Ken Keyes. Who is there with you now? Who is indeed, and free of a wheelchair, I might add. I'm so glad. It's a shame he had to spend so much of his life in one. It's not a shame, it's a blessing. Ken Keyes changed millions of lives because he was in a wheelchair. Millions of lives. Let's make no mistake about this. Ken's life was a blessing, as was every circumstance in it. It provided the exact and perfect people, places, and events to produce for the soul, then calling itself Ken, the experience and the expression for which it yearned and for which it had intended. This is true of everyone's life. There is no such thing as bad luck. Nothing happens by accident. There are no coincidences, and God doesn't make mistakes. In other words, everything is perfect just the way it is. That's right. Even if it doesn't look perfect. Exactly. Especially if they don't look perfect. That's a sure sign that there's something huge for you to remember here. So you're saying we should be grateful for the worst things that happened to us. Gratitude is the fastest form of healing. What you resist persists. What you are grateful for can then serve you as it was meant to do. I have told you, I have sent you nothing but angels. Now I will add, I have given you nothing but miracles. Wars are miracles. Crimes are miracles. Diseases and illnesses are miracles. What do you think? If you were beginning to give answers rather than ask all the questions, what would you say? You mean, what would I say if I were you? Yes. I would say every event of life is a miracle, as is life itself. Life is designed to provide your soul with the perfect tools, the perfect circumstances, the perfect conditions with which to realize and experience, announce and declare, fulfill and become who you really are. Therefore, judge not and neither condemn. Love your enemies, pray for your persecutors, and embrace every moment and circumstance of life as a treasure, a perfect gift from a perfect creator. I would say seek results and outcomes, but do not require them. You have spoken well, my friend. You are becoming a messenger, as Ken Keyes was. Yet now let us take Ken's teachings one step further. For Ken taught, elevate your addictions to the level of preferences. Now you will teach, do not even have preferences. I will? Yes. When? Now, go ahead and teach it. What would you say if you were to teach this? You mean, what would I say if I were you? Yes. I would say, if you require a certain result in order to be happy, you have an addiction. If you simply desire a certain result, you have a preference. If you have no preference, you have acceptance. You have achieved mastery. Good. That's very good. But I have a question. Isn't setting one's intentions the same as announcing one's preferences? No, not at all. You can intend for something to happen without preferring it to. In fact, holding a preference is an announcement to the universe that alternate outcomes are possible. God doesn't imagine such things, so God never has preferences. Do you mean that God actually intended everything that has happened on earth to happen? Well, how else could it have happened? It is your imagining that anything can happen. Is it your imagining that anything can happen that is against God's will? Well, when you put it that way, it feels like the answer must be no. When I look at all the awful things that have occurred in the history of the world, I find it hard to believe that God would have intended for those things to occur. My intention is to allow you to choose your own outcomes, to create and experience your own reality. Your history is a record of what you have intended and what you have intended. I have intended, since there is no separation between us. I got to read that again. My intention is to allow you to choose your own outcomes, to create and experience your own reality. Your history is a record of what you have intended, and what you have intended, I have intended, since there is no separation between us. It does not feel to me as though everything that has happened in human history, or even all that has happened in my own life, is in every case what was intended. It feels as if there have been what I would call
Hey, Linda, will you shut your...
How can a thing be unanticipated if it is intended?
Hey, Linda?
And conversely, how can a thing that is intended be unanticipated?
Linda?
What you always intend at the soul. What?
Can you turn
Yeah.
off your stop your video, because we keep getting some interference.
Okay.
Please and thank you.
Do you need me to back up?
I would read that my intention is to allow you to choose
Okay.
that. Okay.
Okay, my intention is to allow you to choose your own outcomes, to create and experience your own reality. Your history is a record of what you have intended, and what you have intended, I have intended, since there is no separation between us. It does not feel to me as though everything that has happened in human history, or even that has happened in my own life, is in every case what was intended. It feels as if there has been what I would call unintended results many times along the way. No results are unintended, although many are unanticipated. How can a thing be unanticipated if it is intended? And conversely, how can a thing that is intended be unanticipated? What you always intend at the soul level is to produce the outcome that is perfectly reflective of your current state of evolution so that you can experience who you are. This is also the outcome that is perfectly situated to facilitate your movement to the next highest state so that you can become who you seek to be. Remember that the purpose of life is to recreate yourself anew in the next grandest version of the greatest vision you ever held about who you are. I bet I could repeat that in my sleep, which is interesting because when you can repeat that in your sleep, it is a sure sign that you are awake at last. That's clever. That's a neat twist. All of life is, my friend, all of life is. So what have we learned here? What have you been caused to remember? That what I intend is always what is happening. But what is happening may not always be what I anticipated. But how can this be possible? It occurs when you are not very clear about what you are intending. You mean I think I'm intending one thing and I'm really intending another? Exactly. At the physical level, you believe you are calling forth a particular result. But at the soul level, you are calling forth another. Oh man, that's crazy making. How can I possibly know what to expect if I'm creating my reality at levels of consciousness that I'm not even in touch with? You can't. That's why it is said, live your life without expectations. That is also why you have been told, in every circumstance and situation, and in the face of any result or outcome, to see the perfection. You did say both of those things in conversation with God. And now, so that you may understand more fully, let us talk briefly about the three levels of experience: superconscious, conscious, and subconscious. The subconscious level is the place of experience at which you know about, create your reality with full awareness of what you're doing. This is the soul level. Most of you are not aware at a conscious level of your superconscious intentions, unless you are. The conscious level is the place of experience at which you know about and create your reality with some awareness of what you are doing. How much of what you are aware of depends on your level of consciousness. This is the physical level. When you are committed to the spiritual path, you move through life ever seeking to elevate your consciousness or to enlarge the experience of your physical reality, to include and encompass a larger reality that you know exists. The subconscious level is the place of experience at which you do not know about or consciously create your reality. You do so subconsciously, that is, with very little awareness that you are even doing this, much less why. This is not a bad level of experience, so do not judge it. It is a gift because it'll learn, or blink your eyes, or beat your heart, or create an instant solution to a problem. Yet if you are unaware of what parts of your life you have chosen to create automatically, you might imagine yourself to be at the effect of life rather than at cause in the matter. You could see yourself of what you have chosen to be unaware of. Later, towards the end of this dialogue, I will speak to you again of awareness and the differing levels of awareness that produce the experience that some of you call enlightenment. Is there a way to set the same intentions on the conscious, superconscious, and subconscious levels at the same time? Yes. This 3-in-1 level of consciousness might be called supraconsciousness. Some of you call it Christ consciousness or elevated consciousness. It is fully integrated consciousness. When you are in this place on one, you are said to have it all together. But it is really more than that, because in this, as in all things, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Superconsciousness is not simply and then transcended. You then move into pure beingness, and this beingness is the ultimate source of creation within you. And so, for a person of elevated consciousness, outcomes and results are always intended and never unanticipated. Indeed, this is true. And the degree to which a result appears unanticipated is a direct indication of the level of consciousness at which an experience is being perceived. That is precisely correct. Therefore, the master is one who always agrees with results, even if they do not appear favorable, because he knows that at some level he must have intended them. You understand now. You are beginning to comprehend something that is very complex. And that is why the master sees everything as perfect. Wonderful, you got it. What the master may not always see is the level at which the outcome was intended. Yet she has no doubt that at some level she is responsible for the result. Exactly. And that is why the master never sits in judgment of another person, place, or thing. The master knows he put it there. He's aware that at some level he created what he's experiencing. Yes.
Linda, I think you must have frozen up because we aren't hearing you.
What?
Well, the phone call just dropped, but it came back on. So I think we're good to go again.
Okay.
Okay.
And that condemnation has no part in that process. Indeed, that which you condemn, you keep in place. This is also very deep, very complex. Your understanding of it is perfect. Just as it would be perfect if I did not understand it. Indeed. We are, all of us, exactly where it is perfect for us to be all of the time. Exactly, or you wouldn't be there. And we need nothing more for our evolution than exactly what we have and are experiencing right now. Once more, you are correct. And if we didn't need anything, we don't have to trust God. That is what I've been saying, yes. And when we don't have to trust God, then we actually can, because trust then means not having to have a particular result, but rather knowing that whatever result is for our highest good. You've brought it full circle. Bravo. The beauty of this is that not needing a particular result frees the subconscious mind from all the thoughts about why we can't have a particular result, which in turn opens the path to the particular result which is consciously intended. Yes, you are able to put more things on automatic. When you face a challenge, you automatically assume that things will go well. When you face some difficulty, you automatically know that it will be handled. When you encounter a problem, you automatically understand that it has already been solved for you automatically. You have created these outcomes subconsciously. Things start to happen automatically, seemingly without any effort on your part. Life starts working. Things start coming to you rather than you having to chase after them. This change occurs without conscious effort, just as negative, self-defeating, self-denying thoughts about who you really are and what you can be, do, and have are acquired subconsciously. So too are they released subconsciously. You don't know how or when you pick such ideas, and you don't know how or when you drop them. I got a cough, hang on. And you don't know how or when you drop them. Life will simply and suddenly change for you. The time between your thinking a thought consciously and it being made manifest in your reality will begin to shrink. Ultimately, it will disappear altogether, and you will create results instantly. And actually, I'm not creating results at all, but simply realizing that they are already there. Everything has already been created, and I am experiencing the outcome I am able to choose, given my understanding and my perception. I see now that you are now a messenger. You are one who brings a message rather than one who seeks it. You are now able to articulate the entire cosmology. You have even worked into your last statement the truth about time. Yes, time, as we have understood it, does not exist. There is only one moment, the eternal moment of now. All things that have ever happened are happening, and ever will happen are occurring right now. As you explain in Conversations with God, Book 3, it's like a giant CD-ROM. Every possible outcome has already been programmed. We experience the outcome we produce by the choices we make, like playing games with a computer. All of the computer's moves already exist. Which outcome you experience depends on which move you make. That's a very good example because it allows for quick understanding. It has one drawback, however, which is it likens life to a game. It makes it sound as if all I'm doing is playing with you. Yes, I've received letters from people who have been angry about that. They said that if what was said in Conversations with God about events and time were true, that they were deeply disappointed. If, after all is said and done, we are all nothing more than pawns being moved around on a chessboard of life by a God who does so for his own amusement, they were not very happy. Is that the kind of God you think I am? Because you know, if you do, that's what you'll see. That's what you'll see me as. Humans have been having their thoughts about God and seeing me as that for thousands of years. This, then, is the greatest secret of all about God. I will appear to you as you see me. Wow. Yes, wow, indeed. God will seem to be what you seem to see. So how do you see me? I see you as a God who empowers me to create whatever experience I choose and gives me the tools with which to do that. And one of the most powerful tools is your friendship with God. Trust me on this. I do trust you. because I've learned that I don't have to. The process of life is what it is. Trust is not necessary, merely knowing. Exactly.
Well, thank you for reading. That was just about perfect for the time frame we have left. But if anybody would like to say anything briefly right now about what Linda's just read, please do.
Thank you, Linda.
Oh, you're welcome. I have a quote I wanted to share that came up that I thought was so interesting. There's a astrology woman, Lauren Bevan, I think is her name. She does a thing called The Hare and the Moon. And this is a quote where she's talking about astrological things. But she says, the energy overlay is pioneering, breaking new inner ground, and waking up the insight that you are only ever one new thought away from a completely different experience of being alive. One shift of perspective upgrades your processes to read the incoming templates. And I just felt like that. He talks about that in this chapter. You know, just all it takes is that shift of perspective to completely see life in a different way and to become completely new in your experience.
Can you put that in the chat window?
Sure.
Please.
Sure. There.
Thank you. Well, one of the things I was going to say, and some of you have been in the book club long enough to know that you may have heard me say this before. But I used to have this friend that she and her husband, every Friday afternoon, they would invite 6 to 8, 10 people over, and they'd sit in a circle, and they'd drink beers and, make hamburgers and just have a nice Friday afternoon kind of end of the week. And the female friend of mine whose home this happened in, she would get in a very bad mood every Friday because she was facing the garage and her husband kept the garage a complete mess. And so she couldn't deal with it. And then one day she picked up her chair and she moved her chair, and her perspective was instantly changed because she couldn't see the garage anymore. So I always, whenever I see a quote like this, is that you can change, by just shifting your perspective. I think of this friend of mine who just got up, moved her chair, and never sat facing the garage again. She had happy Friday afternoons. So anyway, anybody else have a closing comment?
That was great.
I'm married to a messy garage keeper as well. Fortunately, we don't sit in the driveway and drink beers.
Can you hear me?
Every Friday.
Right.
Hello?
Anne?
Oh, okay. Hi, yes. So it's very funny. This was very apropos today because this morning something happened. I'm always looking when something happens and I get triggered. I try to look and see if there was a lesson or a teaching or what my part was or what I can get out of it. And what I saw was that everything always happens exactly everything always happens the way it needs to. And then I said, but what I realized is that not while I'm going through it. So it's kind of like after I react a certain way, but after the fact. And so then after that, I wrote, so what happens is I need to grow where I'm planted.
Mhm.
And then after that, I went out and did my day, and everything has been in sync. One thing has been validating that statement to another in talking about the reading. Here we are, everything is in perfection, and the reading is validating that too. So what you think is really what you get in most of the time.
Yep.
That's my share.
Well, and thank
Thank
you.
you.
And I think one of the key things that you mentioned, Anne, is, and I call this taking one foot off the path, and you react and you're not thinking about, you know, what you've thrown out there and what comes back to you and that kind of stuff. I think that's the way it is for most of us. When we do have a reaction that we would prefer not to, it doesn't occur to us always in the moment when that event is taking place.
Yeah, that happens to me a lot. It's after. Oh, I should have done that.
Over. All right, well, it's 1 minute after the hour, everybody. And remember, next week is Easter Sunday. And if you celebrate Easter, happy Easter. If you celebrate Passover, I think that's right around the corner. Might even be happening now. But
Next Saturday is the first day of Passover.
okay. So everybody enjoy the holidays, or just enjoy a nice Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I love you all.
So we're not meeting, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we're not meeting.
Are we not meeting next Sunday?
No, we're
No.
not. We're not meeting next Sunday.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for
Love
clarifying that.
everybody. See
Okay.
ya.
Love everybody. We're
Bye.
blessed.
Love
Love
you
you.
all. Miss you.
Thank you.
all.
Blessings.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.